Hello to everyone. My name is Agnès Petitjean and I am the communication consultant and FSIP focal point at the AgriPDB platform, which is hosted by IFAD. We are very much happy to welcome you all to today's webinar, which is dedicated to key performance indicators and particularly the current trends and emerging challenges related to their development. This session is part of a working group that we have launched in March. And we already had a first session where we explored the governance and the strategic integration of impact by public development banks. And now we will focus on the link between performance indicators and certain innovative financial instruments, such as the green bonds or sukuk. And we will also share robust impact frameworks to facilitate the mobilization of large-scale financing. So, in fact, as you all probably know, KPI serves as a powerful strategic tool, not only for PDBs, but also for financial institutions, partners, commercial banks, microfinance institutions. And we live in a context now marked with profound transformations, like the transition to agroecology and also climate challenge. So the ability to measure, manage, and demonstrate impact is no longer just an option. It is an essential requirement for directing funding where it is most useful and effective. So this is why we wanted to have a dedicated webinar on this, and this is what we are going to explore today. Just before we start, I wanted to extend a special thanks to KfW for making this webinar series possible. And also I thank my colleague Nabil Kesraoui and Nejib Aljili for preparing and also facilitating this webinar, as well as our great guest of today, Mr. Eric Rodriguez Maldonado, who is the Deputy Director of the Environment at FIRA Mexico. And just so that you know, this webinar is recorded and will be also available afterwards on the AgriPDB's channel and website, which I will share in the chat. And we will have a Q&A session towards the end of this event, but you can, all through the webinar, just type your question using the chat icon on Zoom, so that then we will just address this question later on during the session. And now, just before we jump into the subject, we wanted to have a little quiz. So hopefully you will see appearing a poll on your screen now. So we asked the participants just to provide their answers. These are two questions. There's no right or wrong answer. It's just for us to understand what's your level of knowledge about the subject. And so, yes, I see that already people are answering. The questions are, the first one is, in your professional practice, to what extent do you use impact KPIs? Either you don't use them at all, you use them occasionally, you use them in a structured way for certain activities, or you use them as a key tool for analysis, decision-making, or management. And the second question is, in your opinion, which of the following aspects are currently most integrated into banking practices? Either primarily economic indicators, economic and social indicators. The third one is economic, social, and environmental indicators. And the last one is an integrated approach that also includes resilience and climate risks. So I see that 18 people already participated. I'm just going to wait a few more seconds and then I will share the results for my colleagues, maybe to just mention a bit what are the percentages and provide a quick analysis. Okay, I'm just going to end the poll now. And I will share the results. Nabil or Nejib, please feel free to provide your feedback, but just as you all can see, so 43% of you responded that you use occasionally KPIs in your professional practice. 24 of you said that you use it in a structural way for certain activities, and 33% said that you use it as a key tool for analysis, decision-making, or management. And to the second question, so in your opinion, which of the following aspects are currently most integrated into banking practices? Most of you responded the first, so primarily economic indicators. Then some of you said that as an integrated approach that includes resilience and climate risk, then economic, social, and environmental indicators, and the last one, economic and social indicators. So thank you all very much for participating. I guess this is a great introduction to the subject. And now, without further ado, I will pass the floor to my colleague, Nabil. Over to you.
Okay, thank you, Anais. Just 1 minute, I will share the screen. Okay, it's okay?
Yes, we can see it, but can you put it? Yeah, perfect.
Okay, it's clear now?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning for American guys and good evening for African guys. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining. Today, we will explore how impact indicators are evolving from simple reporting tools to real driver of strategy and financing. Our session is structured around 4 key objectives. First, understand the main trend shaping impact across economic, social, and environmental dimension. Second, link these trends to major transitions such as financial inclusion, climate, and agroecology.
برافو يسرا، ما تحصلتش عليك.
Najib, please mute your. And third, connect KPIs with financial innovation, including green and sustainability linked instrument. And finally, show how strong impact frameworks can turn results into credibility and unlock funding scale. This key message is simple. Impact is no longer about reporting, it is about decision making. So let's start with why impact indicators are becoming so central today. The slide is essential because it explains a structural transformation in the sector. The rise of impact indicator is not a choice. Today, it is a necessity. The 4 drivers you see here in the slide are in fact systemic constraints that are redefining the role of public development banks. The first driver, budget pressure accountability. So states and donors now require a clear justification for every dollar mobilized. So we are shifting from input logic, amount disbursed, to income and impact logic, real result. The question is no longer how much you funded, but what you changed. The second driver, the climate and environmental risk. This point is critical, especially for agriculture PDBs. Climate risk is becoming systemic, no linear, difficult to detect without indicator. Here, KPI become a risk anticipation tool, not just a measurement tool. The third driver is access to financing. Today, international financial flows are increasingly conditional. Climate fund, blended finance, sustainable bonds. These instruments no longer finance institutions, they finance measured performance. So KPIs are common language with investors. The last driver is the internal coherence. The final point, often underestimated, the internal coherence. Without KPIs, each department operates with its own logic. Risk, prudential logic, commercial volume logic, and strategy impact logic. KPIs align everyone around the same compass. But the most important point on this slide is here, the change on the role of KPIs. Before, a compliance logic, historically, a KPI were imposed by donor, fragmented, rarely used in decision-making. It was a reporting framework, often disconnected from core business. And today, management and steering logic, today we are moving to a completely different paradigm. So selection of strategic KPIs, integration in credit analysis, in pricing, portfolio monitoring, and use in committee dashboard and management process. In other words, KPI become a steering tool just like risk probability. After understanding why KPIs are becoming central, let's now look at the major trends that are shaping impact indicator today. This can be summarized into four major transitions. Financial inclusion. The first trend remains fundamental. The financial inclusion targeting vulnerable population, smallholder, farmers, women, youth, rural and isolated communities. But be careful, we are no longer talking only about access. We now focus more on quality of access, product adaptation, and real impact on living condition. The main challenge remains the lack of collateral and geographic isolation. The second major transition is the shift towards sustainable agriculture model, preserving soil health, biodiversity, ecosystem service. We are moving away from an intensive logic towards a sustainability logic. Typical KPIs are reduction in chemical inputs, improvement in soil fertility. This is a structural transformation of the agriculture model. The third dimension is climate, which is becoming unavoidable. Mitigation, reduction of emission, adaptation, management of climate risk. PDBs must now align their portfolio with international commitment such as Paris Agreement. Typical KPIs, carbon footprint, and exposure to climate risk. Finally, a very operational trend, climate smart agriculture. Here, the objective is to reconcile three dimensions: productivity, resilience, and sustainability. This relies in particular on appropriate technology. After reviewing the major trends, let's now move to the concrete side. What are the economic KPIs that should be tracked to truly measure transformation? The economic dimension is often the most familiar, but here we go beyond traditional financial indicator. We are not only measuring the bank's performance, but the economic transformation of beneficiaries. First level, how is actually being served? The key segmentation, smallholder farmer, agri-SMEs, MSMEs, cooperative. The key issue here is not total volume, but the quality of targeting. The KPIs equal alignment with the development mission of the PDBs. Second key indicator, employment, such as job created, job maintained, and job quality. This is a direct indicator of contribution to the real economy. And the third dimension, more complex, the income. This is a critical KPI, but difficult to measure. The possible methods, proxies, sample survey, and parametric model. The goal is to assess whether financing truly improves income. Finally, we look at productive transformation, agriculture yield, reduction of post-harvest losses, investment mobilized along the value chain, and here we are measuring the agility, the ability of financing to transform value chain. To standardize this indicator, we rely on international frameworks such as ARS+. As you see at this slide, there is a couple of indicators that we mentioned before: number of beneficiary, performance indicator, number 4060, job created, permanent employee, etc. This ensures comparability and credibility vis-a-vis investors. So the economic dimension demonstrate economic viability and transformation. Like we see in this slide, all the indicators we are measured and managing are in alignment with SDGs. For example, the job generated is measured by creation and maintenance of direct and indirect job across value chain, with alignment with SDGs 1, no poverty, and with SDGs 8, decent work and economic growth. The second KPI, increase in income and productivity, is linked to the SDGs 1 and SDGs 2, food security. And the financial leverage mobilization investment is linked to the SDGs 8 and SDGs 17 regarding partnership. After seeing how to measure economic transformation, let's now move to an equal essential dimension, the social dimension. The question here is simple. How actually benefits from the financing and how? Who actually benefits from the financing and how? For a long time, we mainly measured volumes, number of loan, amount financed. Today, we are changing the logic and we focus on the quality of beneficiaries and on the nature of the impact on their situation. First key point, targeting. Disaggregation of beneficiaries, youth, women, rural area, remote territories, indigenous population. Inclusion start with the ability to disaggregate data. Otherwise, we don't really know who we are serving. Second point, reaching undeserved population as new borrowers, previously excluded client. This is a key indicator to measure additionality. Third dimension, beyond credit, training, advisory support, insurance services. Here we measure the quality of the service ecosystem. And finally, a very important indicator for agri-public development banks, do the financing actually contribute to improving food security? The same thing, IRIS Plus is an international framework that set up a couple of indicators that can be used to ensure harmonized and comparable indicator. So this slide illustrates how social KPIs can be also structured across 3 levels of impact and in relationship with a couple of SDGs. First, the new borrowers, measuring how many previously unbanked clients gain access to formal credit. Second, women empowerment, tracking the share of financing dedicated to women in relation with SDGs 5. And third, youth and food security, assessing support to young people and improvement in household food security. The key message is that social impact is not just about outreach, it is about targeting, inclusion, and measurable improvement in people's life. After reviewing economic KPIs, let's see how they translate into concrete financial product. This first example shows how digitalization and traceability directly impact economic performance. Why is this trend emerging now? Rapid growth of mobile money in the rural area, because also increasing traceability requirement from buyers, because also need to reduce cost and fraud, and importantly, investors now require verifiable data. So digital finance is no longer optional. It is becoming a condition for market access. Now let's look at the KPIs used to measure this transformation. First KPI, share the disbursement and repayment done digitally. Second KPI, traceability of production volume. And third KPI, disbursement time and cost per loan. These are not just impact indicators, they directly improve efficiency and profitability. Now, the key step, how do we embed these KPIs into a financial product? Here we have a digital credit and traceability line with incentive, lower interest rates if KPIs are achieved, and also we can embed technical assistance for the beneficiary. So impact becomes a pricing mechanism. The takeaway is these economic KPIs are not just for reporting, they are embedded into product design, into pricing, and risk management. I will move on the second trend regarding the smallholder to have more time to present the third aspect regarding environment. We have just seen the economic and social dimension of impact KPIs, and we have seen how to count a job, how to measure inclusion, how to disaggregate by gender and youth. These dimensions matter enormously. But there is a third dimension that is fundamentally changing the financing landscape for agricultural development banks, and that is the environmental dimension. It's about unlocking capital and managing risk you may already have in your portfolio without fully seeing them. Look at this slide. 3 trends, 3 words: agroecology, water, and carbon. Now, here's the framing that I think is critical. Each of these 3 trends is simultaneously 2 things at once. So please hold in mind these 3 words. It is a credit risk to manage, because if you don't track it, it will show up in your default rate, your portfolio quality, and your NPL ratios. And it is a funding opportunity to capture, because the GCF and the AIB and the African Development Bank, the blended finance mechanism, they are all looking for exactly this indicator to decide where to deploy capital. Before deep dive into each trend, let me give some example of environmental KPIs derived from IRIS Plus. We have, for example, emission avoided. At first sight, we have that feeling of, wow, this is complex and difficult to measure, but I will tell you, this does not need any field survey. It can be calculated through IPCC emission factor. This is parametric estimation, simple, defensible, internationally recognized. The second indicator, water saved. Method reading versus baseline. Your irrigation loan officer already has this information. Biodiversity, yes, this one is more complex. We use proxy and say so explicitly in the KPI dictionary. Transparency about limitation is not weakness, it is credibly. And there is something else on this slide I want to highlight, the bottom section, why this is also a risk issue. A borrower whose soil organic matter is declining is a credit risk in the making. Even if they are performing today, environmental KPI are early warning signal. They don't just attract funder, they protect our balance sheet. Let me now give you the architectural framework that holds everything together. 3 pillars, 3 questions. Pillar 1, mitigation. The question is, what emissions are avoiding, measured in ton of CO2 per year? This is your passport to the Green Climate Fund, to green bonds, and to European Investment Bank green lines. Pillar 2, adaptation and resilience. The question is, how are we protecting borrowers from climate shock? Water efficiency, hectare under climate smart practice. This is your answer to the risk manager in your institution who are asking about climate exposure. And pillar 3, nature positive. The question is, are we restoring or at least not degrading hectare of protected habitat? Reduction in chemical input. This is where the European Union taxonomy, the biodiversity, COP frameworks, and the nature-based solution financing mechanism are converging. 3 pillars, each one is both a risk indicator and a finance access key. Now, let's go into each trend one by one. I will mention only one trend to do not exceed the time. So I will speak about the agroecology and biodiversity. Why now? Let me give you 3 facts that have fundamentally changed the landscape. First 30% of global agricultural land is affected by soil degradation. Not in the future, today. That is a risk that is sitting in your client portfolio right now. Second, the European Union deforestation regulation entered full enforcement in 2025. If any of your clients export olive oil, citrus, cacao, soy, they now face market access requirement that demand documented sustainability practice. A borrower who cannot prove their production chain is deforestation free, risks losing their export contracts. That is a credit event. Third, soil carbon is becoming a bankable asset class. Regenerative farmers who improve soil organic matter are now assessing premium market and climate finance that their conventional neighbor cannot reach. So what do we do with this as a financial institution, PDB? 3 practical KPIs. Percentage of farm under regenerative practice, hectare under agroforestry, and finally soil organic matter percentage. And look at the product example at the right side, an agroforestry credit line with a 30 basis point rate reduction versus standard terms, a covenant requiring 40% of the farm under agroforestry by year 3. Technical assistance bounded in. This is not philanthropy. This is better underwriting because a farm with diversified 3 crop system has lower climate exposure, lower input volatility, and more stable income. The KPI is product design tool. I will skip to slides. So I will move to the greenwashing. So now, and I want to spend a moment here because it is critical. The question that every sophisticated investor, every DFI, every second party opinion provider will ask you is this: how do I know your number are real? This is the greenwashing question, and it is not going away. The left column shows you what creates reputational and legal exposure. KPIs claimed without methodology. Proxy indicator used without stating their limitation. Proceeds not tracked to eligible categories. An SPO obtained, but the KPI dictionary never published. The right column shows you how to protect yourself. Document everything. State limitation explicitly estimated, not directly measured, is not a weakness. It is an intellectual honesty. Aligned with ICMA, OPAM, and GCF standard, choose one and stay consistent. Published your annual allocation and impact report. Transparency is not just good ethics, it is your best commercial protection, because the institution that get caught in greenwashing allegation lose access to concessional finance for years. The institutions that are transparency rigorous become the preferred partner of DFI and institutional investor. Now, let me show you what these KPIs actually unlock the specific instrument. Maybe I will let after the floor to Eric to move more in details in the experience of FIRA. So green bonds, capital raising fenced to eligible green project. The KPIs required are exactly what we have been building: ton of CO2 avoided, hectares under sustainable management, renewable energy capacity, water saved. FIRA Mexico is the reference case. Their green bonds framework requires annual external audit and the KPI set is publicly documented. That framework is what allowed them to access international capital market. Blue bonds, a specialized variant focused on water and aquatic ecosystem, particularly relevant for institutions with irrigation portfolio, watershed management, client or aquaculture exposure. The World Bank and Seychelles model have been adapted. This is no longer exotic. It is a real instrument for agriculture development bank. One common prerequisite for both a credible documented externally verifiable KPIs framework, that is your KPIs dictionary. The third instrument is the most powerful and the most demanding: sustainability linked bonds or sustainability linked sukuk. Unlike green bonds slash sukuk is not use of proceeds. The financial coupon itself adjusts based on whether you meet your sustainability targets. If you hit your KPIs, your renewable energy target, your ton of CO2 avoided, the coupon goes down. If you miss them, it goes up. FIRA Mexico offers the reference example here too, minus 75 basis point on the margin if their renewable energy SPT is met, and Aseli Africa embedded this same logic at the loan level, first loss coverage conditional directly on KPIs achievement. The instrument changed the relationship between impact measurement and financial incentive. So as you see, KPIs are no longer reporting, they are priced into the deal. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I guess now we will pass the floor to our PDB representative. To you, Eric. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation. I'm very happy to be here. I'm going to share a couple of slides just to share our experience using KPIs. Let's wait a second. I will try to put it full screen. Just let me know if you can see it full screen.
Yes, now we can see it full screen. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. So, just briefly, a little bit of a brief story about who we are. Basically, FIRA, it's a Mexican government second-tier financial institution devoted to finance, to give funding, guarantees, and a little bit of technical support, basically to all of the agricultural value chains here in the country. We are made up of 4 different trust funds, but we all together are known as FIRA. We have similar functions to that of a development bank, even though we are not properly a development bank, but we basically function as one. As I said, our view of the sector is basically to finance all of the value chain, to have a more holistic view also, and try to use innovation to try to drive the financial needs of our final beneficiaries or producers. Just so you can have an idea of the impact of FIRA in the country, basically, or roughly $6 to $7 out of every $10 devoted to finance agriculture is related to our operations. So what is it about like these KPIs and impact indicators? Well, we first started basically this story probably more than 10 years ago when we kind of like got more involved into sustainability related issues, trying to create new products and programs that could basically develop more like sustainable practices in the agricultural countryside. And then we saw the need to measure and to keep track of the impact that we were causing, because one thing is to to have a claim, a sustainability related claim. And then another whole different one is to sustain it and to track it and to see if it's really having the impact that you desire. So basically, looking into this, we just have made, since our first issuances of green bonds, some or establish some sort of projects that might be of interest. This is through the taxonomies. So we haven't talked already about taxonomies, but it was the precedent to try to see how or where we should devote our resources, to which kind of projects would be best used to keep our resource to direct our resources to have the impact that we wanted. So in this sense, we use different taxonomies, one for sustainable projects, one for adaptation, and also another new one for blue finance. And basically, with all of that, what we have done is to develop different green bonds, blue bonds, gender-related bonds, and financial inclusion bonds that will that allow us to allocate these financial resources into projects that have more social, environmental, and economic benefits. And we can, as we can see here, we have a number of issuances that are more detailed in this next slide. And as you can see, it's been since 2018 that we started issuing green bonds. Our first three issuances were devoted basically to green-related products. Here we can see it only as green, but there's a wide diversity of projects here, from forestry to protected agriculture. Basically, all of these projects are productive projects that generate the proper revenues and income, so they can fulfill their credit, the credit expectations, and also they contribute to improve at least one aspect of sustainability. In the green bonds, we basically center around environmental impacts, so environmental KPIs, which is kind of like the main focus of the slides that I'm bringing you here. But later on, starting in 2020, we started issuing social bonds, starting with the gender bond. And as you can see in those two bars, the gender bonds have been the one that have been like more they had like the best reception from the investor market. So the difference between the quantity that was on the demand side and what we issued, the differential is the biggest one. And as you can see, there's a lot of hunger in the market for this kind of bonds. And so basically the same can be said for all of the issuances, all of the sustainability related issuances that we have made in the market. As you can see, like basically all of them have an over demand, and this have led us, as we saw in the previous presentation, to have some better margins in the issuances of these kind of instruments. Of course, these kind of instruments, the main thing that you have to show to the investors is the impact that you're causing. So basically, all of the investors are quite used to invest the resources into the usual instruments. And the difference with these kind of instruments is that you can show them that the impact on the environment or the social conditions can be tracked and is credible. So basically, KPIs for this is a key factor, so we can unlock this kind of access to capital. This is pretty much the perspective of the 6 impact indicators that we keep that we keep tracking. And I must say that these impact indicators, we use it pretty much, obviously, as we saw on the green bonds issuances and the impact reports, the annual impact reports. But it's also something that we do for our whole portfolio. So basically, we keep track of these 6 indicators, not only for the green bonds, but for the whole portfolio of FIRA. And that gives us a lot of idea of what's the impact of all of our funding out there. And so basically, we just select the most impactful, basically, for the green bonds instruments, and also for some other interactions that we have with, for example, international financial organizations. And we're going to see a little bit more of that a bit further in the presentation. But the main message of this slide is that we track these 6 indicators, which are related to energy, for example, with the additional renewable generation capacity, with energy savings as well, being energy, well, obviously one of the most intensive in GHG emissions. Then, of course, we track the amount of GHG emissions that are avoided, reduced, or sequestered per year with a wide array of our credits. And also, obviously, talking about agriculture is talking about water. So we have 2 impact indicators that track the impact on water. The first one being the volume of water that is reduced, treated, or managed, and also the volume of waste that is reduced or recycled. This also being general, not only waste in water, but also solid waste. And last but not least, the area of agricultural, pastoral forest ecosystems that are under sustainable management, and this basically is measured in hectares. And from here, you can see a lot of coincidence with we have seen already in the previous presentation. This is I would say, this is quite a standard package of impact indicators that is much needed for basically most of the people out there. And that's good news, because that's something that let us all have, first of all, meaningful information that is quite agreed at some level, that is kind of like the indicators that you need to be tracking, probably depending on your sector, but I would say these are like the most characteristical for agriculture. And also something very important, that this let like everybody be able to compare and contrast what's the impact of each institution that is reporting on this. So I would say this is very important. One also major thing that I want to mention here is that the tracking that we do of these impact indicators is with parameters, is parametrical, which means that we don't go and measure like each piece of hectare or each plot that we are financing, but we rely on the best science available to try to have, like to try to calculate what is the average amount of GHG capture per hectare in protected agriculture, for example, or what is the cubic meters that is saved of water if you use drip irrigation instead of some other technique. So basically, this what does in practice is that it enabled us to have a cost-effective mechanism to keep track on a large scale in our whole portfolio of these KPIs. And this is really good news. One may argue that is probably not, like the most exact or like number you may have. And for this, I would say that you have to be very conservative in the parameters that you use, which is what we are doing here. So you do not overestimate what you're doing, but instead of that, just to have like a very cost-effective and a very reliable tool that will give you more volume to try to track your portfolio. But we are already looking into the future, so to speak, because probably this is not like the most, like innovative tool in the sense that technology has been available out there for a number of years. But lately, what we have seen is that the satellite images and the use of different layers of maps and to have the geographical coordinates of the plots that you are financing is really groundbreaking in the sense that it's also very cost effective and can give you like a better sense, an exact measure of many things that you want to keep track on. So in this example, for example, we're starting to use georeferences of each of the plots that we are financing to cross it to a layer in which we can determine whether if our credit is within the agricultural frontier or not, being this a direct indicator of to see whether if that activity is contributing to ecosystem degradation or not, for example. And this is something very exact, but really cost effective. Basically, just the information is out there. Probably the main challenge is to get like the polygon, the coordinates of the polygon that you are financing. But once you have that, is quite easy, I would say, or roughly easy, to try just to like compare with different layers of map and just to have more information. And that's not that, and that is not all. Basically, what we are trying right now to do is to try different indexes that we can get from information from satellites, and with this try to, for example, with the vegetation index, to try to measure different things, to try to report and verify the use of sustainable practices. For example, to see whether if something is could be considered as agroforestry, or if they have like living barriers, and so on and so forth. Obviously, this also has the benefit of being able to, in a way, to predict the health of the crop, and therefore there's a little bit of prediction whether it about like the yields that could be obtained, for example. So basically, very rich information that you can have available if you just have like these geographical coordinates available and just cross it with satellite information, which is basically the next step of what we are doing, just moving or try to enrich from the six different impact indicators that we have to a more, let's say, sophisticated level of tracking that we are doing. So basically, this is the information that I wanted to share with you, and just so you can have like an overview of what we're doing in impact indicators. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Eric, for providing such a comprehensive overview, and also not only an overview, but a detailed, um, providing some details about the integration of KPIs by FIRA. It was very it's very helpful, and I'm sure that the PDBs that are present in this webinar will learn from you. I've seen some of them, so if some of the PDB representatives are here and wants to intervene or share their experience, please do so. You can raise your virtual hand or add a little comment. But now I think we can go on with the Q&A session. I've seen that some questions have already been asked on the chat, so I'm going to start with the first one from Mrs. Iba Amami. Again, if Mrs. Amami, you are a PDB representative, please, you can also add it in the chat. She asked, how does FIRA distinguish KPI outcomes attributable to the bond financing from baseline agricultural practices already underway in the same investment concepts? And she added another one, which is, what is the aggregation methodology when a single loan finances multiple concepts, and how is double counting avoided across the portfolio? Maybe we can start with this question, if you agree, Eric.
Yes, perfect, because my memory is not that good, so I might get lost. Yes,
No
great
worries.
question. Okay, first of all, the taxonomy that we use basically is kind of like long-term, or is devoted to long-term investments. So basically, we are not, for most of it, we are not including working capital. So basically, it's kind of like new investments in new technology that is, like believed to be better for the environment. So just to have an easy example, is the installation of solar photovoltaic panels. So in the baseline, they don't use it, and now the technological change with the project is to have them. So by the differential, we can see that there's improvement. But as I said, I would say like 90 something percent of the investments that we have on this portfolio is devoted to new technology. And so that's how we can just calculate that it's kind of like a differential impact on that. But also very pertinent, the multiple concepts. One credit usually is devoted to more than one activity. So we use basically two differentiation criteria. First one is that we ask for the credit to, in some programs, for the credit to have at least 51% of the investments going to the sustainability related concepts. So in that sense, we kind of like make like the whole package in the idea that the other 49% is going to be probably devoted towards sustain or to complement the necessary investments within this, and all together just give like a better impact on this. And if that is not the case, and also for like the general portfolio that we do, what we do in our systems is to differentiate what is the amount of money credited to each individual investment concept, which is kind of like the final item that is being financed. And we only track into our sustainability portfolio the part of the credit that is devoted to that specific technology that is within the taxonomy. So that's how we differentiate that. And regarding double counting, in our system, we also tag individually each credit operation to separate it. First, from the general portfolio, we separate like the different investment concepts and the proper quantities that goes with them into a different portfolio, which is the sustainability portfolio, like the general one, so to speak. And then we add another tag for this individual credit that identifies the source of funding, or like the institution where this portfolio was devoted. For example, if we use it in a green bond in this year, so probably it's going to be a tag. Well, not probably. There's going to be a tag that it says green bond 2026, and then it's tagged that operation, and then it's earmarked as we cannot use it in any other way. So to provide proof of use of that. The same goes with international financial organizations. If any one of them, if they give credit or funding to us, and we are using that portfolio to provide evidence of the use of that fund, then we just earmarked that single operation being not able to be used again. And I must say that also we get like a lot of supervision and audit from different either financial organizations or even from the Mexican government. So we're constantly monitored into doing this.
Thank you very much, Eric. I am sure that you perfectly answered the question, but if there's the need for a follow-up, maybe we will do it later. There's another question from Patricia Richter from ILO and the Social Finance Unit. She said that it was a very interesting session, which is good. And she said that it's good to see the firm inclusion of social KPIs in the trends section, also touching on jobs. She said that she heard the inclusion of quantity and inclusion indicators. From a sustainable development perspective, the quality dimension of jobs is at least equally important. She would be interesting to hear why this dimension was not included. Any of the panelists can...
Okay, I will take the floor, Anais. So thank you very much for your insightful comments, Patricia. You are absolutely right to highlight the importance of job quality alongside quantity. In this session, we intentionally focused on indicators that are more readily measurable and commonly available across institutions, such as number of jobs supported and inclusion metrics. However, we fully agree that the quality of job is critical dimension from a sustainable development perspective. The main reason this dimension was not deeply covered at this stage is related to data availability and measurement complexity. Indicators such as job stability, income level, working condition, or social protection are often harder to capture consistently, especially within financial institutions' existing monitoring system. That said, this is precisely an area we are looking to strengthen in the next phase of the work, incorporating proxies or more advanced indicator on job quality is part of the roadmap, particularly as institutions may mature in their impact measurement practice. Your point is very valuable and fully aligned with the direction we aim to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nabil. We have one more question from Mohamed Ali. Thank you, Mohamed. He has, do these investors actually conduct an impact assessment, or is the key performance indicator framework primarily designed to enable FIRA to access international financial markets at a later stage? I guess this is for you, Eric.
Yes, thank you. Also very interesting question. Thank you. These kind of like KPIs are not, I would say, like self-proclaimed in a way. So basically, this goes into a process of verification before, like when you launch it, and also after you are like financing a specific portfolio. So in this sense, you need to make like this second party opinion before you launch, for example, a green bond. And so this means basically that somebody is just reviewing whether if the information you are intending to get in your KPIs is consistent with the international best practices. So this is done before the issuance, and basically since the issuance framework that you have to prepare beforehand. And then in the annual reviews, the annual review is where you basically just calculate your impact indicators and see where your allocations were going to. And when you do this, also these annual reviews are subject to a third-party verification. So into this, basically, it's not like the investors conduct themselves a review, but they rely on this third-party verification that you have to conduct. And I also may say that this is part of an entire ecosystem, so to speak, because investors are also looking for you to having an ESG grade, for example, which we have. So it's not only to take, like just for one single bond operation, but basically it's called like take like the whole view of it. So they just verify your financial, obviously your financial standings, but also they take a look on whether if your overall performance is satisfactory, and also your ESG ratings, some other ratings that you may have, some qualifications that you are acquiring, maybe awards that you've been awarded, so to speak, sorry, during the year, so on and so forth. So they're very critical on the general situation of the issuing institution, and then very specific on the impact that you are claiming. I must say also, and this is something that I really like of my job, that it's very often that we have calls from the investors asking for us to have conversations about what are our future plans to improving this portfolio, or our actions towards, like climate change mitigation, adaptation, different topics. And they're constantly asking us on what are you going to do next. And this is very rewarding because more often now you can see that investors are more active into, I mean, like not only into investing and relying on a single sheet verified by someone, but more actively involving into trying to get to know what are you really doing. So that's something wonderful that I have been that I see like the market is turning toward across like the few couple of years.
Thank you very much, Eric. We are reaching the end of this of our time, but there's one last question from Bridget Fenn. The person asked, do current KPIs effectively reflect trends and emerging challenges in nutrition-sensitive value chains? I don't know whether Nabil, Eric, or Najib, you want to take this question?
Okay. Najib, you will take the floor. No problem. I can answer. So, in short, current KPIs only partially reflect trends in nutrition-sensitive value chain. They still focus mainly on production and financial metrics with limited measurement of real nutrition outcome. Key gap include lack of indicator on dietary diversity and food consumption, weak tracking of food quality, losses and nutritional value, insufficient insight into impact on vulnerable group, women and smallholder. Bottom line, KPI system need to evolve toward measuring both agriculture performance and actual nutrition impact. So I think that on the same track of the question of Patricia, there is a lot of job to be done to improve the quality of the KPIs and to move more deeply in the quality of this indicator.
Thank you very much. I hope this answer all the question. Of course, if you have follow-up question, you can reach to us by email. Now, just before, I think we're gonna conclude this session, but we have one more little poll for the remaining attendees. So I'm just gonna launch it and you can all answer, and I will just provide some conclusion. I just wanted to, of course, thank our amazing panelists today. Thank you very much, Eric, for providing such precise insights into the experience of FIRA while integrating key performance indicators and also sharing the challenges and opportunities. I think it was very much interesting, and I hope that the PDBs who were present really learned from your experience. Talking about PDBs, I wanted to say hello to some of the people who joined us today. There were representatives from FIRA Mexico, Finagro Colombia, the Eurasian Development Bank, two banks from Bolivia, TADB Tanzania, DBL Uganda, Land Bank Zambia, to also from Brazil, from Salvador, Botswana, Ghana. So thank you all for joining. I hope I did not miss any. I wanted also to thank Nabil and Najib for organizing and helping us in pulling up all the content of this meeting. And also thanks to Francisca from KfW who joined us today. And I wanted to let you know that this is just the second session, as I said at the beginning, of this working group. So there will be a third session in May on data management of KPIs. So please stay tuned, and because we will have a third and last session. Now I will just end the poll and share some of the results. So the questions of this second poll were, in your opinion, what is the main challenge today in promoting the use of impact KPIs? So 40% of you said that it is related to the access to reliable and measurable data. 30% said that is from the ability to link KPIs to funding and concrete incentives. Then the integration of KPIs into decision-making tools and business models, and 10% of you said that the main challenge is in the lack of clear standardized benchmarks. And the second question, was in an economic context. How is the concept of financial leverage defined? And 50 of you said that is in the ratio of additional financing attracted to AgriPDB's equity capital. Some others said that it is linked to the preferential interest rate granted to cooperatives, and 20% said the gross increase in agricultural yield per hectare. And the last question was, in the context of thematic bonds, what does the requirement for fund traceability mean? And most of you answered that it means the ability to prove that the funds were allocated exclusively to eligible project categories. Others said it was the individual GPS tracking of every employee of the financial institution. And the last portion of people, 40%, said that it was the prohibition on commingling funds with private client deposits. So I don't know if Nabil, you want to say some words about these results, or otherwise we can conclude this meeting.
Yes, I think that we can conclude the meeting. The results are very relevant. So there is a gap between reporting currently of KPIs and requirement of donors. So we move more to impact measurement and management of these KPIs. And the first Q&A reflects that there is more than 40% that are following KPIs for donor obligation. And I think that in the next 10 years, though, we will shift there to another mindset, the mindset of embedding the impact in the strategy, in the business strategy, to be at the same page with the SDGs.
Good. So there's still work, but there's hope. So thank you all again. Thank you, Eric, Najib, and Nabil, to all the AgriPDB team. And I wish you all a great rest of the day. And please stay tuned for the upcoming webinars. Thank you very much.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a good one. Ciao.
Bye.
Have a nice evening. Bye-bye.